Hi, this is Quinn Costello with SF Indie Fest, and I am here with some of the filmmakers for Unfix. We have director Graham Streeter and lead actor Zane Haney with us. So welcome and thank you so much for sharing this film with Indie Fest.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's really provocative stuff, and so I guess, my first question to you, Graham, I was just curious about your kind of general interest around conversion therapy and what kind of drew you to this subject matter.
All the, when I am embarking on the writing process, I try to go down a rabbit hole that I've never been down before, that I have no knowledge of, that I have no experience, so that it becomes a learning curve for me. I become more educated, a better person by the time I'm done with all the research. Sometimes it could be a year of, you know, just studying different things until you find that subject that is relevant for today in our time. It's important to have a conversation about, and yet I don't know anything about it myself. If the ignorance is there for me, then it is for a lot of viewers, and that is when the film becomes an interesting piece to do. It gives itself purpose. So it was really just by randomly going through different types of topics that I came across therapies, and then therapies that dealt with controversial tactics, and then that got into conversion therapy. And then the more I busted into that whole world, the more I realized that there's so many people who've been affected by it and who continue to struggle from its after effects, as well as there's a whole generation that's out there right now that is facing it and struggling to find their independence or their voice when people around them are trying to subject them to conversion therapy. So it turns out to be, sadly, a very important topic to dive into.
And I kind of it's really interesting and dynamic in the film how like I wouldn't necessarily think that like a thriller would necessarily be, or I don't know how you would just if you would describe this film, but I kind of thought of it as kind of like a psychological thriller. And it was an unexpected choice for the subject matter, so I was kind of wondering how you kind of arrived there when you were interested in this topic, but you were kind of thinking about ways that you could tell the story that would be kind of gripping and work in these different ways.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of psychological thrillers. All my work seems to be kind of in that pocket because I like the adrenaline, like the rush of the psychological roller coaster that an actor can go through, a character can endure, and kind of rise out of. And if you do action or do anything that's not psychological, as an indie filmmaker, it immediately means a lot of money. So if you reverse engineer it, what's brilliant, like the most intense car chase you can do without all the cars is something that happens in the head. So if you can give an actor this mental journey and go on a ride with that, you are equally in an action piece, but it's all emotional. So psychological thriller is just the pocket that I love to work in. And then if you have something like conversion therapy, that if you've heard this, these stories are being told all the time. It's usually a young boy, and they're trying to find their sexuality, and then people are squashing it and trying to cap it and redivert it and package it as heterosexual through conversion therapy. And that's a very common thing, but it really speaks specifically to kids who identify as LGBTQ and that whole thing, that experience. So how do we bust it open bigger? And that's what we did in this story. We tried to take down those guardrails of just the classic conversion therapy victim and put it all in the head and put it all into a psychological journey. And then that's what you get.
Zane, can you kind of tell me a little bit about how you came to the project and what your initial reaction was to this script and kind of how you started to kind of conceive of the character?
I mean, yeah, so I actually applied to this project myself through Actors Access, which is like a platform where you apply to like some auditions. And initially I remember like reading the breakdown, and I was completely just like drawn to the character of Ari. I just remember like, oh wow, that sounds like super interesting, and click like apply. And then it wasn't until I got an email back from Graham that I sort of started like uncovering more about this character, and then he sent me sides, and we were talking over Zoom, and that was like great. That was the great thing about it, is we were able to have such like a conversation beforehand, like in the auditioning process, because Graham did not let you know what was going on in the story. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't even know that it was about conversion therapy to begin with. I mean, the audition scene that I had was it was a surrogate partner therapy scene. Although I didn't even know necessarily if I knew that. Eventually, Graham told me about it, and I, like Graham, didn't know a lot about conversion therapy. And I feel the same way, Graham. Honestly, I feel like our point here on this earth is to expand our mind and to learn more about things that get us out of our comfort zone, that just expose us to humanity, and really teach us about one another. I think that's the point of being here. And so I delved deep into conversion therapy. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos. I read a bunch of books on it. I read Boy Erased. I read. I think like one of the main things, I think Graham touched on this too, is about this is something that occurs to you in your youth, your very formative years of identity. And one of the things I found most compelling about Ari is like, okay, this could have happened to any one of us. It doesn't matter, gay or straight, it could have happened to any one of us. And what that does to your identity as a kid, which is one of the most important things. When your pure identity that nobody else can take away from you, somebody is literally stripping that from you, and then you honestly don't know which side is up. So I mean, really thinking about that a lot. I come from like a Strasbourg background, which is, you know, not necessarily like method, but I'm like, all right, well, I'm just like thinking of that in terms of my own childhood. What would that look like? And what experiences would I have that were like similar to Ari, and just kind of like putting myself like connecting the dots, filling in the puzzle pieces there. But it was, yeah, that's kind of what I probably went off the script a little bit, but that's what got me attracted to the project the most, was this going out of your comfort zone, and really touching on something that is like just this I don't know how to describe it, like this this shocking nerve in in your emotional reality. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting, and like one of the things that I thought was came across to me as I was watching is kind of this idea of doubling, you know, and how each of the four characters seem to have this kind of mirror image on the other side, and but then each of the characters contain within themselves a kind of a kind of mystery. With your character in particular,
Yeah.
I felt a sense of menace on one hand, you know what I mean, because I felt like you were like this
Dark. Yeah, it's a dark.
tightly wound, you know, but that also you contained within the performance this notion that you're trying to kind of transcend your past and stuff. So I wonder, and you can, Zane, I'd like to hear from you first, but Graham too, I'd like to hear about how you were kind of thinking of the different roles relative to that, and how you kind of wanted to, if you were hoping to kind of keep the audience kind of guessing right to the very end about the motivations of these characters.
I'm sorry. Can you say that question one more time?
So I was wondering if you could kind of speak to this idea of like what are the challenges for you as an actor to present a character who we're not necessarily sure about their motivations or sure about their intentions?
Want me to take it
I mean,
first?
I know, I could take it. I could take it. I mean, um, I think that's just life, right? I mean, we're not necessarily sure all the time about our motivation. So like, it was very, I mean, it's kind of like it's for Ari, it's kind of like an open alleyway, really. I mean, I have so many different things to explore with that. Yeah. I, yeah.
Graham, can you kind of speak to that? I mean, with the whole this
Yeah,
ensemble of four people and the
yeah,
dynamics that you were trying to kind of achieve around that.
yeah. I always like when you're in a movie and you're following a character and you kind of, we innately try to figure out where it's going to land and where the ending is. That's just our job as film viewers. We try to crack the code before the end of the film. And if you can lay out a path that looks like it's going one direction, you get suckered into that. And then you ultimately, my writing goal is to flip it somewhere and you prove you wrong. And Zane is right. Um, in his character, he never does really flip. He's always just in the middle there, and he's open to anything that might happen in his journey as a character. He's brave enough to at least know that if it goes one way, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
But to make
That's
that choice,
I don't
is
think my character, it's like I'm not in control of that. That's probably why I had trouble with the question. I'm not in control of that. I'm just going along with the ride, really. And that's what's so freeing about Ari, because he has no idea where it's going to go. And that's why he's so scared too, because oftentimes when you're that scared, you don't have control of the reality that you're going into. So I think,
yeah.
yeah.
But structurally, we do set it up that, if you watch a movie about conversion therapy and someone who's accused of being gay, sure, the classic ending is that they find themselves and they come out. There's a huge chunk of the beginning of the film where you say, Ari must be gay. And this is a story about finally saying he's gay to everybody and coming out. But it's not that simple. And it doesn't even turn out to be that. And then Ava, isn't what's going on in her situation? Is it this? And then is it something else? And so they all kind of they vacillate. But if you look at each character, and Zane, you're right, each actor just played down the middle. There was no flipping in their reality. They were just dealing with one simple straight line that was gray, but it never changes for them. But as a viewer, I like to think that we were assessing one thing and then we're looking at it from a different lens. And to me, that's the best, because in life, a lot of times we see someone, we immediately judge them, we put them in a box, and we say this is what they are. And then the more you get to know the person and understand the details, you sometimes realize you're completely wrong.
And can you kind of talk a little bit about just the production of the film and like what were some of the kind of hurdles and how did you kind of work with some of the like what was the schedule like and how were you kind of achieving this? I know that independent films, it's always you're trying to do a lot with a few resources. So I was wondering if you could kind of take me into that a little.
I'll speak on the technical side, and then Zane can talk about the experience of what we set up for him and the actors. For us, on the producer side, as a writer, we knew that we were facing COVID, and we had a limited opportunity to get a piece done before it might get shut down. There's always that fear. So mitigating and creating a small cast, a relatively simple amount of sets that were controllable and even extendable for that matter, like making sure that we found a location that if we did get sick or someone had to shut us down, that we could hold that space dressed as is and come back in 3 or 4 weeks, which if you're renting a studio or something like that, suddenly you're bankrupt, So all those logistics like that really did play into how we were going to structure And again, I like to reverse engineer. As a writer, I have the opportunity to like say, let's just rewrite this so that it's cheaper and it's safer. And let's narrow down the cast, and let's make sure that we don't have these obstacles, so that during the uncertainties of a pandemic and not knowing what the next curveball was going to be, that we could hopefully get through this thing. And so we were just being very smart about how we laid it out, and all at the same trying to make it as as lean as possible to get through the scenes as fast as possible. We did this. The bulk of the film was done in 2 weeks, and then we peppered the rest of the story over a period of a couple months, right, Zane? And then we did, prior to ever stepping into that first scene, we did a good solid 2 months maybe of rehearsals back and forth and conversations and scene work. Zane?
Yeah. No, I mean, just in terms of like the time we were at, it was a very, very kind of isolating time, which I think helped with the whole story and like the characters. I mean, for me, I had a roommate that like he had just like left me like he went back to New York, couldn't be in LA anymore. 3 weeks before we were shooting. So I was completely isolated at home. Graham was like, you're everyone like isolate, don't go anywhere else. And then meanwhile, Ari is isolated in his home. And not only that, he's isolated from everyone else in his life besides Ava. So I think that all fed into that. Using Graham's beautiful home, which we turned into a shitty apartment, and yeah, it just kind of set everything up for success in that way. I mean, we didn't really have many other locations except for a few outside locations and one other house, but yeah, we pretty much pulled all the favors that we could. And it was just, I think it was more efficient, and it was better serving to the story than it ever could have been any other way. Because these people were having to literally pinch pennies. And so it was just, everything kind of like bled in perfectly, actually. Uh-oh. Oh, I think your mic went off.
Sorry.
Mine?
Thank you. That mine.
Oh.
So sorry about that. Graham, I was wondering, you shot the film, right?
Yes.
So can you kind of talk about the dynamic of you shooting the film, and like what is it about shooting your own film that is appealing to you, and how do you kind of how does that dynamic kind of work when you're also having to do, work with these actors and everything to kind of direct them? And it seems like a lot of plates to keep spinning.
Well, okay, so I grew up, my father was an artist and art teacher, so I painted a great deal of my life. I always think of motion picture being picture that's just in motion. It's painting again. And I've never known an artist to like stand at a canvas and say to someone else, you hold the brush and you do this for me and I'll tell you what to paint. I just, that's what I want to do. I want to create the picture myself. It's the most rewarding and intimate connecting location to be between, on the other side of that camera, between the actor, camera, and my brain. That's that brush. And I feel like I have the ultimate ability to convey the story that I want to convey. Luckily, I have the technical, and it's arguable, the technical know-how to actually run a camera and to be the one who gets to operate. Zane will attest to this. I think that it makes the day go faster if the DP is the D, because there's no conversation to be had. So you don't have that lag time of talking about the scene and how you want to shoot it and this and that. We truncate that whole process so it moves faster. The only thing is, it's important then to not direct on set. And I think that's a pleasure for any actor, to not have the director kind of like giving last minute notes and having crazy new ideas on the last minute. I like to almost run it like a, you know, like a stage play, do all the work way in advance, exhaust every idea, every question, get every tear out, get every nuance of every word explored. And then when we finally show up for these scenes, we spend so much time building into the scene, and then the last, you know, then suddenly you on day you shoot it, and in 15 minutes it's done and it's over, and it's like it's gone. But there was, because we were so prepared for it, because we, all I had to do was ask the actors to do it a couple more times because I didn't have focus. But for the most part, instead of directing a film, I'm just capturing, like a fly on the wall, I'm just capturing it happening in real time.
And one thing I was curious about is this, excuse my ignorance if this is just a known thing, but this concept of a surrogate, is that something that is actually, you know, used in therapy environments? And it was a new concept for me.
It was new for me too, and for Zane. It does exist. It's slightly controversial because it's such a intimate intersection between client and patient. It has to be done with incredible delicacy and training to be done right. And I think it's usually done in like sex work, sex surrogate work, where you don't have a partner and that you may have an anxiety, or you don't have the ability to work with someone on a sexual level if you have a sexual issue. And so a professional has to come in to surrogate that position. And so, yeah, I mean, that was part of the fascination, was like, oh, I didn't know this existed. My biggest question was like, how does a surrogate go home at night to back to their world, you know? And I think we tried to explore that a little bit in this piece too. It's not that easy, you know?
Yeah, well, it's certainly very very provocative stuff, and a lot here that is really, really interesting and fascinating. And so look forward to seeing it live in the theater in San Francisco in a couple of weeks. And so what's next for the both of you in terms of next steps? Are you have any kind of topics that you're interested in exploring, or projects that you're excited about coming up? Zane, I'll
Zane?
start with you.
You wanna go? Um, I'm working on I'm actually working on writing a script right now with a friend of mine that's basically I'm half Greek, so it's kind of exploring the Greek heritage, and you know, being basically half Greek, half American, and not through the lens of Mamma Mia or Big Fat Greek Wedding, kind of a more artistic approach to that. So we're in the process of developing that. Yeah.
And how about you, Greg?
I have a couple of films that are on the table that we're thinking about doing. We're going to get, we spend 1 year dedicated to festivals like yours, and going to them and attending them and supporting them and meeting other filmmakers. So that's really the, you know, highest priority right now for us. And then around July, we'll shut everything down. That'll be our 1 year mark from our premiere, which was at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood in June of last year. And then we'll decide what film to go with next. And if I'm lucky enough, Zane will be in the film as well. And if I'm lucky enough, I'll be still young enough that I can hold the camera.
I'm
Right, that's
turning
the hope.
60 soon. 4 days? How many days? 4 days?
I'm turning 60 on the January 22nd.
Big
Oh,
60.
happy birthday. Amazing.
Yeah.
Um, well, 60 is like the new 30 anymore, you know?
Yes,
And I know holding the camera is good exercise.
it is. It's a workout.
Yeah. So how can people, I mean, it seems like this is the kind of film that, you know, it's, you know, people should see it who are, you know, of course, interested in just entertaining thrillers. But how can people kind of spread the word? It's an important topic too. So how can people kind of spread the word, and what kinds of audiences are you hoping to reach with this film?
Um, we do have a lot of followers nationwide, and I sadly it's because of the whole community of the conversion therapy experience. Um, when we were in Palm Springs recently over the summer, we did a festival, and the film's only an hour and 45 minutes long. We did a Q&A afterwards, which was 2 hours long, and we had professionals from all facets of the conversion therapy experience, including a gentleman who was one of the founding fathers of conversion therapy, who has he spent about 15 years just devastating and destroying the lives of young men across the country, and he's spent the last 25 years now trying to rectify that and start an alliance with other people across the country to promise never to do that again. And conversion therapy survivors and friends and family of, and all the actors, of course, and stuff like that. We all talk about this experience and how it affects everybody, and how, like in the story, Ari in the story when he's 12 years old is a different world than it is when he's 35 years old. And we hope that that we can continue the conversation with all these communities, so we can show that even just because it's not happening as much anymore, there's a whole generation that still has to rise from that. And as we are rising from it, and as we see that it's not happening as much as before, it is happening more and more and more. It's starting, there's new laws that are being pushed and to stop the ban on conversion therapy, to open up the volatility for young kids so that it's legal in states again to subject kids to conversion therapy. There's a whole, not to get political, but a right-wing evangelical movement to kind of reverse all the work that's been done. So this film on a political level, on a social level, is really important. And we hope that we kind of draw in people and their understanding of it just by the sheer nature of what's happening in the world. But we need to, we're always looking for ways to figure out how to share more. And so like when we were in San Francisco, for example, we will be doing sidebar Q&A off side of the theater, because the theater can't hold as many people as we'd like, but to have a serious conversation with guest speakers who are conversion therapy survivors, for example, who've written books and who are spending a lifetime recovering from this issue and witnessing more and more of the reversal of this protection as they grow older and try to survive from it. So that's our agenda, to just get it out and let it speak to the people who don't know anything about conversion therapy are our target audience. They need to understand,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's definitely a lot to learn and a lot to kind of bring to this topic that, and the choices that you made explore it in a way that I think are a first. So, well, thank you. And look forward to seeing you in San Francisco.
Look forward to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.